Imagine you've just been notified that you're going to be giving the keynote address at a major conference. Congratulations! There are going to be thousands of people there. Your boss is thrilled. This is going to be great. It's going to be great for the company. It's going to be great for your career. It is going to be the most significant presentation you've ever given, and the success will depend on the message you give. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. How many people feel just a little bit daunted in this task? Yeah, just maybe show that. Just a little bit. How do you create your message? How do you create a champion message that's going to reach 1,000 people or more? The message you give is supposed to make people think or feel or do something. That's what a keynote address is all about. Great speakers spend a significant amount of time thinking about how they're going to make their audience think. Martin Luther King said it best. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. You've got a daunting challenge. Today, in this seminar, we're going to present some of the techniques used by 2 championship public speakers. These speakers are Darren McCoy, who's a 2001 world champion, and Randy Harvey. I've just been reading a lot about their books, the type of speeches they give. You can actually find their championship speeches on YouTube. Darren, his championship speech was called Ouch. Randy Harvey's was called Lessons from Fat Dad. And they were fantastically delivered. Let's hear a little bit about Darren first. Darren's motto, if you've ever heard him speak or give any presentations, and I have, we've got a few of them here, it's stage time, stage time, stage time. He wants everybody up there on the stage presenting and learning what to do right, what goes wrong, how do we recover from it, and keep that experience going. Never turn down stage time. Why? Because you're going to learn what material works, what deliveries work, what structures work. The first crucial step in creating a keynote address is, what do you want your audience to do? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? If you haven't answered that question, don't start writing your speech. He says, get clear with that premise. Reduce that premise to 10 words or less. Exactly what is the message here that you want to give your audience? Create a foundation phrase. He's very clear about what a foundation phrase is. This is going to be a phrase that gets repeated over again throughout your speech so that you weave together this keynote address and get your message to your audience. And lastly, you're going to prove your premise one chunk at a time. Let me explain what a chunk is. To do that, a chunk is going to be a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of your story, your examples, perhaps your metaphors that you're going to use, and you weave all that together as a chunk. Let's take a look at how he lays out his speech. You always start with a strong opening. Make sure you're clear about that strong opening. And you have to kind of understand, is your audience thinking? Keep polling your audience to see if they're thinking, if they're following you. Present your premise to them. If they're thinking, get them thinking about this premise. Now this next part you're going to do multiple times. This is the chunk I was talking about. You're going to present your wisdom as a chunk. It's going to come as a story. It's going to show an example. And perhaps you have some exercises in there, challenges for your audiences, or metaphors that you're going to use as part of that chunk. And then you work in a seamless transition and you do it again so that there's another chunk in your story, in your entire speech. Perhaps you'll have 3 of these chunks. The reason why you're asked to break it up this way is because sometimes you'll have extra time and you'll be able to work in more into your speech and you just provide another chunk. Other times you're running out of time. All of a sudden the red light goes on and you've got to drop something in your speech. So you drop one of your chunks and the entire presentation still holds together. Your premise is still valid, your conclusion is still valid, you just left out one chunk and you saved some time. And finally, you have a review. You review everything. You have a call for action. You answer any questions. And you have a strong close. Now let's contrast this with the other championship speaker. Randy Harvey is very clear. What is your truth? Every one of us has a truth. Something we truly believe in. Why is that so powerful? Because you're the most powerfulest, most passionate, most persuasive if you're speaking from your core of your being. If this is really what's true for you, people will tell it resonates for you. It's real. And that's how you create your message. They'll believe you because they can see that. It actually comes out in your actions. So you build a message that resonates for you and you frame it with what he calls the 3 W's. What are the 3 W's? You're going to explain who you are. That's the first W. That's your philosophy. This is who you are. This is your premise. This doesn't change. Second one is, what are you about? This is your core belief. This is the rules you live by. Now, when Randy starts to advise people, he teaches people how to write speeches. Politicians, executives, CEOs. They have to answer questions. And more importantly, they have to get people to believe them. And the way he does that, you have to ask the question, who you are. You have to tell people that. You have to tell them about what you are about. And lastly, where'd you learn that? The story, the people, the events that shaped your life. All of this gets woven together as the 3 W's. He actually has you put together perhaps multiple W2s. We're complicated enough that we could be about several different things. You might be a teacher, for instance, and you might be about having a philosophy that says, no student of mine will ever fail unless I fail them first. Other times, you might be the student. You might be the student that says, I was a student that took a math class, that I got caught up in a math problem that consumed me for 35 years. All of these are part of you. So depending on what audience you're addressing, you learn to weave in that part about you into your storyline. This is how he does it. He actually has you create what's called a Genesis thread. This is the thread that's going to be your Genesis thread that's going to work through your entire speech. But he advises you here, and this was the most important thing that I learned out of reading his book. His book, by the way, is Public Speaking 101, Messages That Matter. You have two different voices. The voice you write with for an article is very different from the voice you use to give a speech. And he actually teaches you how to write for a speaking voice. And it's very different than how you will write for an article for publication. You pause differently. You accent things differently. You put metaphors in there. And to show you how he does it, he actually analyzes three incredible speeches. One by John F. Kennedy, one by Abraham Lincoln, and one by Frederick Douglass. These speeches he analyzes for how they were built, how they were constructed, and he asks you to follow their thread that was worked through the entire speech. He uses what he calls screen constructs. Screen stands for similes, echoes. Give me a second. Simile, contrast, rhyme, echo, alliteration, and metaphors. This is how he builds it together. Finally, the story that makes the point is put in there. And again, he introduces this thing called a legacy line. A legacy line is a short line that you're going to weave through your entire speech, because that's the line that people are going to remember at the conclusion. Conclusion. Craft your messages to resonate with yourself and with your audience. Get clear with your premise. Get real clear with your premise. Make it 10 words or less, and understand that's the major message you're giving your audience. Create and use a foundation phrase or legacy line throughout your speech, and spend some time looking at the videos on YouTube or reading the books published by some of the great championship speakers. It will open your eyes to exactly how they build and craft a championship speech. Thank you.